Picture yourself now, safe and resting in the quiet dark. Long ago, the greatest leaders in history could never find this quiet peace. They built massive kingdoms of stone and steel, but they built them on a thin, frozen layer of trust. A hidden force followed them everywhere. The fear that their closest friend, their own blood, or their trusted advisor would turn in the night. This quiet danger was the one thing they could not defeat. They won battles against armies, but they lost the small, soft fight inside their own minds. This inner war of paranoia began the collapse of great powers. Let your mind drift now and listen to the silent moments of dark history when loyalty became the deadliest crime and the constant fear of betrayal destroyed everything it touched. We begin where all great shadows start, in the palace of a man named Julius Caesar, where a friend's smile hid the sharpest danger. Let the slow words now guide you far away into a peaceful, soft story. The friend who held a dagger. The strongest leader felt a sudden fear from his closest friends. It was this dark, quiet fear that ended a great life. Julius Caesar was a man who won all the big wars. He walked into Rome like a giant who owned the land. He had great power, the kind of power that made the earth shake. But great power brings a great, quiet shadow. Caesar trusted a young man named Brutus like his own son. Brutus was smart and quiet and stood very close to the great leader. Caesar thought Brutus loved the old ways of Rome, the ways of the Republic. He didn't know that Brutus felt the heavy weight of Caesar's great power was bad for the land. Paranoia began small, like a cold breeze in a warm room. It was not the soldiers Caesar feared, but the soft, gentle voices near his chair. He let his guards stay far away, thinking his old friends were a better shield than metal or sharp spears. This trust was a soft, beautiful mistake that turned into a sudden darkness. The danger was not from a foreign enemy, but from a friend's hidden hurt. This is how the fear of betrayal starts its quiet, slow work. In the place where the Senate met, the air was cold and marble was smooth. It was a normal day, like all the days before. Caesar walked in, tall and proud. The men around him were his own people, the ones he helped rise up. They smiled at him, but their eyes held a strange new light. One by one, they came close, talking low and quiet. Then, the sharp, quick movement came, like a flash of cold silver. Many hands held many hidden small knives. Caesar saw his friend Brutus standing there, raising his own hand. The moment was silent and very slow. The big man who conquered the whole world fell down in a heap. The empire collapse did not start with a war, but with the quiet sound of a body hitting the stone floor. His power was too big for one small city, and the fear he forgot to have was now everywhere. This event showed everyone that even the kindest heart could be hiding a great, terrible plan. The ground was now covered in the blood of broken loyalty. The Roman Republic was an old idea, about sharing power among many people. When Caesar took all the power, he broke the old idea. The men who killed him did it for the old idea, not for themselves. But they brought fear to the city. The people of Rome saw that even a giant could be stopped by just a few soft whispers and sharp knives. The fear of Caesar was now replaced by the new fear of sudden, quick plots. No one could trust anyone who spoke of freedom anymore. The death of Caesar did not bring freedom. It brought great paranoia. It taught Rome that love and friendship were weak things. Only hard power and constant watching could keep you alive. This quiet lesson changed the path of the world forever. The memory of the bloody robes stayed in the minds of the new leaders like a cold, wet dream. What this silent moment shows us is the true danger of not trusting anyone. Caesar died because he trusted too much, but the ones who came after him learned to trust no one at all. They lived in a dark history of looking over their shoulder. They knew the fear of betrayal was right there, hiding in the next smile. This fear is a heavy weight that stops a person from resting. It makes the world look dark and full of traps. It slows the movement of the whole empire. When a leader cannot relax, the whole world they rule cannot relax either. The simple truth is that the seeds of great destruction are often planted by the people you let sit at your own dinner table. Watch how a small doubt can become a great disaster for a whole people. The quiet, sharp sound of that first knife is the same quiet sound that you will hear now in many other stories. It is the sound of paranoia starting its journey. The fear of a friend turning on you is a universal fear, one that every emperor or ruler must face in the night. This same feeling of deep, sudden disappointment will come back later in our story, with Stalin and others. The human heart holds both the greatest love and the sharpest danger. The simple fact of Caesar's end connects him to all the others who felt the same cold surprise. We see a link now from the Roman stone to the far cold lands of Russia. Close your eyes and think of the great man who fell and how quiet the world became just after. The empire was changed by that one act of lost trust. The final goodbye was silent and fast. We can rest now, knowing the quiet end of Caesar's greatness brought forth a long time of fear. Let your mind gently drift away from the Roman Forum. Breathe deep. The long shadow of betrayal will soon move to the next great ruler. Quiet fear in the leader's house. A new emperor had to watch his own family and helpers. He made secret rules just to keep the throne safe. After Caesar, a new ruler came. His name was Augustus. He was very clever and very quiet. He knew that the biggest danger was not the loud armies far away. The biggest danger was the soft voices in his own home, in the Senate, and in the rooms where he ate his meals. Augustus was the first true emperor, and he learned the hardest lesson. True power is built on stopping the small plots before they even start to grow. He had seen what lost loyalty did to his uncle, Caesar. He would not make the same big mistake. He kept his guards close and his eyes closer. His whole reign was a slow, careful dance around the shadow of betrayal. He had to fight the quiet war of paranoia every single day. Augustus did not want to rule with big, sharp fear, but he needed to be safe. So he made a special rule called mistrust. This old word meant hurting the greatness of Rome, but Augustus used it in a new way. He said that hurting the emperor was the same as hurting Rome itself. This meant that any small word, any quiet talk, any hidden letter could be seen as a great crime. It was a net that caught everyone. This simple rule turned every person near him into a possible danger. It forced people to watch their own tongue and their own friends. This was how paranoia became a part of the Roman law. The law itself was a quiet fear, a thing that lived in every person's mind. The citizens began to report their neighbours. They became helpers of the empire collapse, not knowing it. The meaning of this quiet fear is deep. It shows that when a leader is truly afraid, they make their fear into a rule for everyone. Augustus built the empire, but he also built the long shadow that went with it. He made it impossible to just be a good friend or a simple helper. Everyone had to be either completely loyal or a secret enemy. There was no middle space for normal human mistakes. This constant quiet pressure slowly changed the Roman heart. The people stopped thinking freely. They only thought about how to survive the fear. This is the dark history lesson of centralized power. The fear of the man at the top spreads down like a cold, slow fog. The great city became a place where whispers were more deadly than shouts. What this period shows us is how a personal fear can become a giant state machine. Augustus used the memory of Caesar's betrayal to protect himself. His paranoia became the safety net of the state. He taught all the future rulers how to use suspicion as a tool. The next emperors would learn this lesson too well. They would use the fear of hidden plots to get rid of anyone they did not like. The system was now built to reward suspicion and punish kindness. This quiet system slowly ate away at the good heart of the empire. It was a hidden problem, like a crack in a strong big wall. This is a very important moment in our story of empire collapse. This small detail of the Maestus rule is like a hidden key. It connects the sharp, quick moment of Caesar's death to the long, slow, cold fear of Stalin many years later. Both leaders took personal paranoia and made it a rule for the whole country. Both leaders made the people watch each other. They used the fear of being reported to control the masses. This quiet, careful watch in the inner circle is a recurring motif. The leader's house becomes a prison of trust. We can see the first long shadow of the totalitarian state right here, in the golden city of Rome. Close your eyes and feel the long, cold quiet of a house where no one can speak freely. Sleep comes hard when you must watch your own home and your own tongue, but you're safe now, far away from the rules of Augustus. Let the quiet rhythm of the simple story bring you rest. The shadow of betrayal is moving now to the next ruler, the next dark mind. The young boy's sudden dark mind. A wild, young ruler trusted no one, so he hurt everyone around him. This dark mind brought a quick, sharp end to his reign. The new ruler was a young man named Caligula. He was the great-grandson of Augustus, but he did not have his great-grandfather's quiet, careful mind. Caligula was wild and sometimes seemed quite mad. He loved to show his big power in strange ways. He had seen the constant paranoia of the rulers before him. He saw that fear was the true secret to keeping the crown. But instead of using fear with care, he used it like a giant sharp club. His fear was loud and very sharp, not quiet like Augustus's rule. He had learned the wrong lesson from the dark history of betrayal in Rome. Caligula saw all his family and all his helpers as little toys. If he did not like a toy, he just broke it quickly. He started to think that only he was real, and everyone else was just a shadow. This deep, lonely feeling of being the only person who mattered is the worst kind of paranoia. He loved to watch the people around him become scared. He would tell his friends they were going to die, and then laugh when they cried. He even brought his favourite horse into the place of the Senate. This was his way of saying that the Senate meant nothing. He was telling them, "I do not need your loyalty. I only need your deep, quiet fear." This way of ruling was too fast and too sharp to last for a long time. It was a quick path to empire collapse. The meaning of this story is simple. A leader's paranoia must have some sort of quiet control. When the fear is too wild, it burns out everything quickly. Caligula made everyone afraid of him, even his own guards. But when everyone is equally afraid, no one is safe. The fear stops being a tool of control and becomes a call to action. People think, if I am going to die soon anyway, why should I not try to stop the danger? This quiet thought is the most dangerous thought for a tyrant. Caligula made the mistake of thinking fear was stronger than the human desire for safe, soft rest. This short, sudden reign is a warning. It shows how quickly a strong power can break when the fear is too big. What this short, dark time shows us is the limit of fear. Augustus had built a system, a quiet net of betrayal. Caligula tried to make the system loud and scary. But when the danger is loud, you can see it easily. When the danger is soft and quiet, it is much harder to stop. Caligula had no hidden plots to fear, because all his plots were out in the open. His own dark mind brought a quick, sharp end. He did not lose his power to a rival emperor, but to his own unhappy guards. These guards were his closest people, the ones who had to watch his strange behaviour every single day. The fear he gave them came back to him in a quick flash. The small event of Caligula's wild fear connects to the bigger fear of all dictators. They all share the same lonely feeling. They are the only ones who can be right. This makes them push away every friend and helper. They create a big, empty space around their own throne. This is the ultimate sign of paranoia. The feeling of being completely alone, even when you have millions of people to command, is a terrible feeling. We can feel the cold wind of that loneliness even now, many years later. Close your eyes and think of the unhappy young ruler, all alone in his great house, surrounded by people who wished him gone. His great power brought a quick, sharp end. Let your mind drift from the noisy, sad life of the young boy. You're safe now, far away from his strange, dark mind. The gentle story continues, showing us how others learned to use this quiet fear. Music and plots in the Great Fire. A singing emperor saw enemies everywhere, even in the shadows of his palace. His fear made the great city burn in the night. Now we come to a ruler named Nero. He loved music and art more than he loved the big, boring work of ruling. But he was also deeply afraid. Like all the emperors before him, he felt the heavy weight of the knife in the dark. He knew that any person who clapped for his song too softly might be planning his end. His paranoia was gentle at first, like a light, slow fever. He began to see plots everywhere. He started to punish many good people, people who had been loyal to Rome for a long time. He could not tell the difference between a true friend and a hidden enemy. This inability to see clearly is the greatest cost of constant fear. Nero wanted to be loved by all the people, but he also needed them to be very afraid. This is a hard balance that always fails. A great fire started and burned a large part of the city of Rome. Many people lost everything, and they were very sad and angry. Nero's enemies spread a quiet, bad whisper. They said Nero himself started the fire so he could sing a sad song while watching the flames. This may not be true, but Nero believed the people thought it was true. This fear of being blamed made him very angry and very afraid. He had to find someone else to blame quickly. He needed a group of people to hate, so the anger of the city would go away from him. The meaning here is simple. Paranoia always needs a scapegoat. When a leader is truly afraid of his own people, he must give them an easy enemy to focus on. Nero chose the new, small group of Christians. They were quiet and kept to themselves, so they were easy to point at. Nero said they started the fire. He punished them in terrible, dark ways. This act of great cruelty came not from power, but from deep fear. He was afraid of the angry crowd and the quiet whispers of betrayal. The fire did not cause the cruelty. The emperor's fear of his own people did. This fear made the empire weaker, not stronger. What this tragic moment shows us is how paranoia is used to change the truth. Nero needed a new story for the fire, one where he was not the villain. He used his deep-seated loyalty crime fear to create this new, dark story. The moment the leader can change the truth, the whole country becomes lost. No one knows who to trust, and the true danger is forgotten. The people stop looking for the truth of the fire and start looking for the next person to blame. This is how the fear of the leader infects the whole city, slowly, like a disease. This infection is a key part of the empire collapse pattern. The way Nero used a public disaster connects to modern events where rulers also look for quick blame. The fire itself is a recurring image in dark history, a symbol of sudden, sharp loss. Nero's fear of the crowd is the same fear that the French kings felt before their revolution. All rulers who rely on show and big buildings fear the quiet, angry voices of the many. The fear of being a failure is often bigger than the fear of a knife. This moment is a gentle reminder that external dangers are easier to face than internal doubts. Close your eyes and see the great city burning, but listen only to the quiet, slow rhythm of the story. The singing emperor lost his peace long before the fire started. You're safe now, far away from the plots and the bright hot flames. The gentle story continues its slow path into the past, showing us the next quiet end. The strong man's last sleep. The emperor who thought he was a god was killed by his own trusted bodyguard. His lost trust turned into a long, final goodbye. Our story now moves to Domitian, another Roman ruler. He learned all the wrong lessons from the past emperors. He saw that the secret of power was not being kind, but being unpredictable. He grew more and more afraid that his helpers were planning his end. This growing paranoia made him start to act like a god on earth. He called himself Lord and God. When a leader truly believes they are a god, they have no equal, and no one can be trusted. This lonely belief cuts them off from all true human loyalty. Domitian's great fear made him turn his own palace into a trap. He covered the long marble halls with a special stone. This stone was so polished and smooth that it worked like a mirror. He could see the reflection of anyone standing behind him. He needed to know if a guard was raising his hand or if a servant was holding something hidden. He spent his days watching the floor, looking at the upside-down, blurry world of reflections. His life was a constant, quiet check for betrayal. He walked in a beautiful, gilded prison of his own making. This act shows us how exhausting paranoia is. It takes all the joy and all the rest out of life. The meaning of this shiny floor is deep. It shows that even when a leader can see every angle and every person, they still cannot stop their own fate. The floor gave him information, but it did not give him peace. The fear was inside his own head, and no smooth stone could stop it. The palace was not a safe place anymore. It was just a giant clock waiting for the moment of empire collapse. Domitian tried to control everything, but the more he tried, the more the small things slipped away. He was punishing people for tiny things, making the fear grow bigger and bigger. What this quiet, sad moment shows us is that the killer is always the person you would never suspect. Domitian was finally killed by a group that included his own wife and his trusted guard, Stephanus. The guard was the last person anyone would have thought of. Stephanus was like the shiny floor. He was close, he was useful, but he was hiding a sharp, quick danger. The final, sharp act of betrayal happened in his own inner room. Domitian had watched the flaws, but he had forgotten to watch the deepest feelings of the people closest to him. The system of total suspicion, the dark history of Roman paranoia, had come full circle. It broke the man who used it most. This strange story of the mirrored flaw connects to all other rulers who use technology to spy on their own people. From a shiny marble floor to a hidden camera, the motivation is always the same: the deep, constant fear of being overthrown. This fear of a loyalty crime is the driving force of the empire. It is the single, hidden thread that runs from Rome to the modern world. The death of Domitian was the quiet end of the first great line of emperors. His last sleep was forced and final. Close your eyes and see the upside-down world of reflections on the marble floor. Do not let the quiet fear of the old emperor come close to you. You are safe now, far from the prison of his beautiful, lonely palace. Let the memory of his last, forced rest bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of paranoia is moving now to a new land. Sharing power with no trust. 4 great rulers tried to share a huge, big empire equally, but their secret fear made them all turn and step away from power. After the time of the first emperors, Rome grew too big for just one man. A clever ruler named Diocletian had a new quiet idea. He would split the power into 4. 4 men would rule 4 parts, and they would all work together. This was called the Tetrarchy, the rule of 4. It sounded like a wonderful, safe plan. It meant that if one man was killed by betrayal, the whole system would not fall. It was an attempt to solve the paranoia problem with simple math. But human hearts are never simple like math. The 4 men were all strong and good at war. They made their own, capitals far apart. They did not sit together in Rome, which they saw as too full of old, dark plots. But even with all that distance, the old fear grew between them like a cold weed. They had to trust the other 3 men completely, and this was too much to ask. Each man began to worry that the other 3 were getting too strong or planning a sudden move. This quiet, growing suspicion was the seed of empire collapse in the new system. They tried to build safety, but they only built 4 new targets for loyalty crime. The meaning of the rule of 4 is that true paranoia cannot be split up. It lives in every heart that holds too much power. Even when the rulers were far apart, they imagined the others moving closer in the dark. The distance did not bring rest. It only brought more space for worry to fill. They created a beautiful system of shared power, but they forgot to create a system of shared trust. The 4 leaders soon realized that sharing a crown meant having 4 times the danger. The fear of betrayal did not go away. It just spread out across the whole land. This period is a dark history lesson about the limits of structure. What this quiet time shows us is that power makes friends impossible. Diocletian, the man who started the plan, was the wisest of the 4. He made a bold, strange choice. He decided to stop being an emperor. He convinced the other 3 to stop ruling too. He thought that by stepping away, he could stop the system from falling apart. This act was driven by a deep sadness and a realization that the system of shared power was doomed to fail due to internal fear. He understood that the only way to stop the spiral of paranoia was to leave the big chair empty. The strange event of all 4 men giving up their crowns connects to the few times in dark history where leaders chose peace over power. Diocletian was the first to realize that the throne was too hot to sit on for too long. His choice links him to modern leaders who have chosen to retire rather than face a long, slow fight with their own party. It is an acknowledgement that the problem is the system of absolute power, not just the man who holds it. His retreat was a quiet victory over the fear of betrayal. Close your eyes and see the 4 silent rulers, all walking away from their big houses and their crowns. They sought rest in the simple quiet of a farm. Sleep is the only thing a ruler cannot command, but they found it when they gave up the crown. The shadow of paranoia is now moving to the great gold city of Byzantium. The empress who saw everything in the great gold city of Byzantium, a powerful queen, watched for quiet plots. Her constant watchful eyes kept them safe from dark, bad plans. Now we are in Constantinople, the new capital. This city was known for its great high walls and its hidden quick dangers. We meet a very powerful woman named Theodora. She was an empress. and she knew the city better than anyone. She had seen how the wealthy families would plot and whisper. She knew that the quietest people were often the most dangerous. Her life was spent watching for the small signs of betrayal. Theodora's paranoia was not wild like Caligula's. It was smart and very focused. She knew that every noble house, every general and every priest could be planning to take her power. So she used her quiet eyes to watch everything. She had helpers everywhere, people who listened to the whispers in the markets and the dark alleys. Her network of spies was built on her own personal fear of being overthrown. She used this fear to keep the empire strong. She understood that information was a better weapon than a sword. She wanted to stop the loyalty crime before it was even whispered. The meaning of Theodora's Great Watch is that sometimes paranoia can be a stabilizing force. She used the dark fear to create light and order. By being the most afraid person in the room, she made everyone else feel safer from external enemies. Her watching protected the empire collapse for a long time. She did not kill people wildly, she just made them quiet. She made them know that the Empress saw everything. Her quiet strength meant that fewer people dared to plot. Her rule shows a different way to handle the constant threat of betrayal. What this quiet, strong time shows us is the power of a quiet threat. Theodora did not need to be loud. The knowledge that she was always listening was enough. The people who wanted to rise up had to be very, very careful. They knew the cost of failure was too high. This is a powerful lesson in dark history. Sometimes the illusion of total knowledge is more powerful than actual total knowledge. The Empress who saw everything made the entire city afraid to even think a bad thought. Her shadow was long and covered the whole city in a veil of quiet order. The constant vigilance of Theodora connects to the way modern intelligence agencies operate. It is the same quiet, careful gathering of small pieces of information. She was the first great spy master of the empire. Her fear was systemic. It was a net that caught everyone, but it was used to prevent the sudden, quick plot of betrayal that killed Caesar. She was smart enough to learn from the dark history of Rome. She knew that the problem was not the people, but the quiet space they had to plot. Close your eyes and think of the powerful Empress, sitting quietly in her palace, seeing everything in the city. Her watchfulness is now the quiet rhythm that brings you peace. You're safe from the whispers of the market and the plots of the nobles. Let the memory of her long watch bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of paranoia is moving now to the simple lessons of power. The prince learns to not trust. A clever writer taught all the new leaders how to rule through fear, not with love. He said to always watch the quiet shadows of others. Now our story moves from the great palaces to a quiet desk in Italy. A writer named Machiavelli wrote a very important, very honest book. This book was meant to teach new princes how to keep their power safe. Machiavelli had watched the constant betrayal and paranoia of the Italian city-states. He saw that the kind and loving leaders were often the ones who lost their heads first. He decided to write down the true, cold rules of power. Machiavelli said a prince should want to be loved, but if he had to choose, it was much safer to be feared. This was a direct, clear answer to the dark history problem of the empire collapse. He said that love is a loose bond, something people can break when they want to, but fear is a chain that never breaks. He taught that paranoia must be a gentle, constant state of mind, not a wild outburst. The ruler must be like a clever fox and a strong lion at the same time. He must be smart enough to see the traps and strong enough to scare away the wolves. This was the first time that the dark art of power was written down so clearly. The meaning of Machiavelli's book is that he legitimized the fear of betrayal. He told the emperor or the prince that their feeling of paranoia was correct and good. He made suspicion into a rule of governance. This book made it okay for a leader to not trust his own brother, his own general, or his own best friend. It gave all future tyrants a kind of permission slip for their worst fears. This book slowly seeped into the minds of all the great European rulers. It taught them to look for the loyalty crime not just outside the palace, but inside the very room where they slept. What this quiet book shows us is the true power of an idea. The book itself was just ink on paper, but it became a guide for keeping power safe from empire collapse. Machiavelli said that a leader should always be careful not to take a man's property or his family's honour. He said men will forget the death of their father faster than they will forget the loss of their wealth. This was a quiet, cold observation of human nature. It showed that the deepest fears of the common people are often simpler than the great fears of the emperor. The teaching of this clever man connects directly to the way kings and dictators have ruled ever since. His advice on watching the shadows is the same advice given to a secret police officer many centuries later. The idea that all men are basically ungrateful and ready for betrayal is the core belief of every totalitarian leader. This simple book is one of the most important lessons in dark history. It tells us that the fear of the leader is often the fear of what they know about the badness in their own human heart. Close your eyes and think of the clever writer sitting alone, writing the cold, true rules of power. You're safe now, far away from the tough lessons of the prince. Let the simple quiet of the writer's desk bring you deep, soft rest. The shadow of paranoia is moving now to a jealous queen's house. The queen who feared her sister. A queen was scared her own sister would try to take her crown away. This quiet family fear kept the whole kingdom awake and watchful. We now come to England and to Queen Elizabeth I. She was a very great ruler, but she had a constant quiet fear that lived in her own family. Her cousin Mary was also a queen, and many people thought Mary should be the ruler of England instead of Elizabeth. This was a paranoia problem of blood, not just of politics. The closest family member was the biggest threat. Elizabeth loved her throne, and she did not want to lose it to anyone, especially not to her own cousin. Mary was kept locked up in a fine house for many, many years. Elizabeth never let her go. This was not because Mary was a bad person, but because Elizabeth knew that Mary was a constant symbol of betrayal. Every time a person wanted to plot against Elizabeth, they would look at Mary and see an easy answer. This made Elizabeth's fear constant and quiet, like a low humming sound in the background of her life. She was always watching the letters and the movements around her cousin. The meaning of this long watch is that the greatest danger to a ruler is always a clear alternative. As long as Mary lived, the empire collapse was always one sharp knife away. Elizabeth's deep paranoia was rational. It was based on a real threat of loyalty crime. She was forced to be a watcher, always reading the quiet shadows of her own court. She knew that her cousin was the magnet for every plot and every disloyal thought. This fear was a big weight, but it also made Elizabeth a very strong and very cautious ruler. She learned to delay and to wait until the danger was fully ripe before she acted. What this quiet, long fight shows us is the cost of absolute power. Elizabeth could have killed Mary quickly, but she was afraid of what the people would think. She was afraid that a sudden, sharp act would be seen as a betrayal of justice, so she kept the fear alive for many years. She made the problem a slow, constant thing instead of a quick, loud one. This long period of suspicion made the English court a place of quiet tension. Everyone had to choose a side, and the wrong choice meant a very bad end. This is a very real moment of dark history, where family and power mixed into a painful knot. This fear of the close-by family member connects to many old stories, and also to the great houses of Russia. The fear that the person with the same bloodline will rise up is a recurring motif in all empires. It shows that the crown creates its own loneliness. Elizabeth's watch is a gentle, quiet echo of Theodora's Great Watch. Both women understood that the paranoia was the price of the throne, and they both paid it with their own peace and rest. Close your eyes and see the two queens, separated by long stone walls, both lonely, both afraid. You're safe now, far away from the plots and the cold, quiet house of the cousin. Let the long, slow watch of Elizabeth bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of betrayal is moving now to the clever queen's secret room, secret letters, and the hidden net. A clever queen built a secret team to find every little plot. She knew hidden letters were more dangerous than a sharp sword. The same Queen Elizabeth I knew that fear alone was not enough. She needed a special man to help her fight the shadow of betrayal. This man was Francis Walsingham. He was quiet, smart, and deeply loyal to the Queen. He was her eyes and ears in the darkness. He became the master of all secrets, the architect of her quiet paranoia. Walsingham's job was to stop the empire collapse before it even made a sound. He created the first truly modern spy network. His spies were everywhere, in the ports, in the courts of other countries, and even in the quiet rooms of the Catholic priests. He was looking for the secret letters, the whispered promises, and the hidden movements of the Queen's enemies. His work was a quiet, constant fight against the loyalty crime. He knew that a letter, once sealed, could hold a great, terrible plot. The moment he found a plot, he let it grow just a little bit, until the planners showed their whole hand. The meaning of this secret work is the deep, dark power of the information war. Walsingham's network of spies was built on the Queen's paranoia, but it was executed with cold, quiet logic. He did not act on a feeling, he acted on a fact. He was the one who finally found the clear proof that Queen Mary was involved in a plot to kill Elizabeth. This final piece of evidence sealed Mary's fate. This act was not driven by simple fear, but by the cold, hard logic of state security. It was the moment that the defensive paranoia of the Queen became a final, fatal action. What this hidden net shows us is that dark history is often made by the people who stay in the shadows. Walsingham never wanted the public glory. He only wanted to keep his queen safe. His silent, constant work shows the true cost of ruling. The emperor or queen must have someone like Walsingham to do the dark, difficult work of managing the threat of betrayal. This hidden net of spies made England safe, but it also made England a less free place. The people knew someone was always watching and listening. The system Walsingham built connects directly to all modern intelligence. It is the first clear example of a permanent organisation dedicated to fighting the loyalty crime. The quiet war against the secret letters is the same war fought by codebreakers and spies today. The fight against paranoia became a fight with the darkness itself. The English Queen's safety came at the price of the freedom of many. Close your eyes and see the clever spy master, holding a secret, unsealed letter in the dim light. You're safe now, far away from his sharp eyes and his hidden net. Let the memory of his long, quiet watch bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of paranoia is moving now to the grand palace of the Sun King, keeping friends very close. Now the Sun King put all the great families in one giant big house. He watched them all so they could not make secret, bad plans. Now we travel to France, to the time of King Louis XIV, the Sun King. He was the most powerful emperor in all of Europe. He had seen the dark history of plots and betrayal that hurt the kings before him. His solution to the paranoia problem was massive and shining. He built the Palace of Versailles. This was not just a home, it was a clever golden cage for his entire noble class. The king made it a great honour to live in Versailles, but it was also a quiet trap. All the great, powerful families of France were forced to live there with him. They had to spend all their time competing for small favours, like helping the king put on his shirt. This made them busy with silly, small things instead of making big, dangerous plots. The king was the centre of everything, and everyone had to orbit around him. He could see every person, every day. This closeness was his way of managing the threat of empire collapse. The meaning of Versailles is that constant observation is the ultimate form of control. The king's paranoia was subtle and grand. He did not need a secret police, he just needed a lot of mirrors and a very strict daily schedule. The nobles were so busy watching each other for status that they forgot to watch the king. This system took the fear of betrayal and turned it into an expensive, quiet hobby. It was a brilliant, unique solution to the problem of loyalty crime. The king used vanity and small jealousy to keep the whole country safe for a long time. What this grand palace shows us is the power of distraction. The nobles were no longer a real threat to the king's rule because they were busy fighting over tiny steps in the royal dance. They became dependent on the king's attention. If the king looked away, their whole world of status and power was gone. This is a crucial lesson in dark history. Control is not always about punishment. Sometimes it is about making the people who might betray you too busy and too weak to plan anything serious. This strategy of forced closeness connects to how modern companies keep their biggest rivals close by. The principle is the same. Keep your enemies where you can see them and give them small rewards to keep them occupied. The Sun King's fear was not of a sudden, sharp knife like Caesar's, but of a long, slow plot. He successfully stopped the growth of paranoia by forcing it out into the sunlight and making it a game of status. Close your eyes and see the long, glittering hall of mirrors reflecting 1,000 quiet faces. Every face is watching every other face. You're safe now, far away from the rigid rules of the king's court. Let the memory of his long, quiet watch bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of paranoia is moving now to the time of revolution and sharp, quick change. The terror that ate its own. A man who wanted great freedom started a scary time of great fear. The paranoia he created soon turned back and took his own life. The story jumps to the French Revolution, a time when the people rose up to take power. A key leader of this new freedom was a man named Robespierre. He had a pure, sharp idea of what freedom should be. He thought that anyone who did not agree completely with his idea was an enemy of the whole revolution. This deep, absolute belief is a very dangerous form of paranoia. Robespierre started a time called the Terror. It was a time when the new government began to kill many people. They killed the old nobles, the priests, and anyone who was not enthusiastic enough about the new freedom. The great fear now was not of the king, but of your own neighbour. People were afraid to speak freely, because a single wrong word could mean a sharp, quick end. The spirit of betrayal now moved from the palace to the street. Everyone was both the watcher and the watched. This total lack of trust was meant to save the revolution, but it only created a new, shared loneliness. The meaning of the terror is that a revolution built on fear must always keep finding new enemies. When all the old enemies are gone, the leader's paranoia must turn inward. Robespierre's deep fear of loyalty crime meant that he started seeing enemies among his own friends. He believed that the revolution must be pure, and purity meant cutting away everyone who had even a little bit of doubt. This made the fear grow bigger and bigger until it was too big for anyone to control. This is the moment in dark history where the cure becomes the disease. What this sad, short time shows us is that the fire of paranoia eventually burns the hand that holds it. The people who helped Robespierre create the terror soon realized they would be next. They saw the end coming, and they decided to act first. They stood up in the assembly and stopped him from speaking. The man who had sent thousands to their end was now dragged away by his own friends. The fear he created came back to him in a quick, sharp circle. This is the moment the terror ate its own, and the great engine of fear sputtered and died. The pattern of the revolution turning on itself connects to all great sudden changes in dark history. Whenever a leader tries to enforce an absolute idea of purity, the fear of betrayal must eventually consume the leadership. This moment is the opposite of Caesar's death. Caesar was killed by those who wanted to go back to the past. Robespierre was killed by those who were afraid of being consumed by the absolute future he demanded. The common thread is still the deep, quiet fear in the heart of the leader. Close your eyes and see the angry, frightened crowd turning on the man who gave them freedom. The paranoia was too much for the new empire to hold. You are safe now, far away from the sharp, quick justice of the revolution. Let the memory of the terror's quick end bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of betrayal is moving, now to the end of a very strong voice. The big voice. Silenced forever. A strong friend of the revolution was suddenly told he must go away. His old friend's fear meant his great voice was lost for good. In the same moment of the terror, there was another great man named Danton. He was loud, full of life, and loved by the people. He was a very close friend to Robespierre at the start. They fought together to bring down the old king. But Danton was tired of the killing. He thought the time for fear was over and the time for peace had begun. He said the terror must stop now. This desire for peace was seen by Robespierre as the ultimate betrayal. Robespierre's paranoia could not accept a half measure. He believed that stopping the killing was the same as inviting the old enemies back. He saw Danton's kindness as a weakness, a slow path to empire collapse. This moment is a sad example of how pure ideology destroys friendship. The two great men, who had shared every danger, now saw each other as the most dangerous enemy. For Robespierre, the fear of loyalty crime was now focused on his best, loudest friend. The meaning of Danton's end is that the man who cries for moderation is often the next victim of paranoia. Once a system of fear is put in place, it is almost impossible to turn it off. The engine of the terror needed new fuel, and Danton's gentle voice was the next thing to be burned. Robespierre chose his idea over his friend. He chose absolute paranoia over simple human trust. This choice was the saddest moment of the revolution. It showed that the new government was just as cruel and just as afraid as the old one they had fought to replace. What this quiet tragedy shows us is how dark history repeats its cycles. Danton's betrayal by his friend is an echo of Caesar's betrayal by Brutus. The place of power demands the highest price, the loss of all true close human connection. The leader must choose between the throne and the friend, and the throne almost always wins. This tragedy made the revolution weaker, not stronger. The people lost their hope when they saw the strongest voice for peace silenced forever. The lesson is that the friend who is too powerful is always seen as a danger. The fear that Robespierre felt for Danton connects to the fear that Stalin felt for Trotsky, a story we will hear later. The idea that a former comrade holds too much history and too much influence is a fatal threat to a tyrannical emperor or ruler. The old friend knows all the secrets and all the weaknesses. This makes the old friend the most difficult enemy to defeat. Their shared past becomes the weapon of paranoia in the present. Close your eyes and hear the last quiet words of the great man whose voice was silenced forever. The cost of stopping the fear was too high for the moment of revolution. You're safe now, far away from the dark choice between a friend and an idea. Let the memory of Danton's quiet end bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of paranoia is moving now to the great general. The emperor's sad, empty throne. The great winner of battles trusted only his first wife, Josephine. His deep fear of losing power made him lose his truest support. The great new emperor of France was Napoleon Bonaparte. He was a general who won every fight. He brought order back to the chaos of the revolution. But like all powerful men, he felt the heavy weight of paranoia. His fear was not of a hidden knife, but of the future. He worried that his new power would not last. He had no son to take his throne after him. This fear of a lack of future heir became his deepest, quietest worry. Napoleon loved his first wife, Josephine, very much. She was his true friend, his calm support in all the great battles. He trusted her completely. But she could not give him the one thing his empire needed, a son. His political paranoia began to outweigh his human love. He believed that without a male heir, his whole creation, his great French empire, would fall apart after he was gone. He believed that only a bloodline could prevent the ultimate empire collapse. This cold, hard logic forced him to make a terrible choice. The meaning of this sad event is that power often requires a betrayal of the deepest human bonds. Napoleon had to choose between his throne and his wife. He divorced Josephine, the person he truly trusted, to marry a younger woman who could give him a son. This was a political act driven by a deep fear of future vulnerability. He thought he was ensuring his dynasty, but he was actually just making himself lonely. The throne he saved felt empty without the one person he could trust to tell him the truth. What this quiet divorce shows us is the loneliness of great power. Napoleon was surrounded by generals and ministers who praised him, but he knew they only loved his power. Josephine was the only one who loved the man inside the uniform. By pushing her away, he made his own court a place of pure calculation. He created a space around himself where only ambition and paranoia could thrive. This act of quiet, necessary betrayal was a self-inflicted wound. It showed that the biggest danger to the emperor is often the one they bring upon themselves. The cost of this political loyalty crime connects to all royal marriages throughout dark history that were sacrificed for the sake of the crown. From the Tudors to the Bourbons, the demand for an heir often overrode love and simple human connection. Napoleon, the great revolutionary, was caught in the oldest royal trap of all. He was afraid of the future, and that fear forced him to destroy his safest past. His throne was never truly safe after that. Close your eyes and see the great general standing alone in his empty grand room, having sent away the one person who gave him rest. You're safe now, far away from the cold logic of the crown. Let the quiet rhythm of the sad, empty throne bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of paranoia is moving, now to the cold north. The dark cold watch in the north. In the cold, snowy Russian palace, the king kept a careful, silent watch. He saw quiet plots in every snowdrift and every corner. We now travel far north to the huge Russian Empire. We look at the long line of Tsars, the Russian kings. These kings ruled over a vast cold land, and they were constantly afraid. The sheer size of the country made them feel alone and vulnerable. The danger was not just outside their windows, it was inside their own great families and courts. This vastness created a kind of geographical paranoia. The Tsars knew that betrayal could come from any direction. The nobles were powerful and restless. The common people were vast and silent. So the Tsars created a huge hidden police force. This force was called the Oprichnina at one time, and later the secret police. Their job was to watch everyone, from the highest prince to the lowest peasant. This was the start of the deep, pervasive culture of suspicion that would define Russian dark history for centuries. The emperor's quiet fear became the constant background noise of the whole country. The meaning of this secret watch is that the bigger the empire, the bigger the need for control. The Russian Tsars could not control their huge country through love or just laws, so they controlled it through paranoia. They encouraged people to report on each other. They made it a loyalty crime to know too much or to be too smart. The secret police became the eyes of the Tsar, seeing everything and reporting every quiet whisper. This system ensured that no one could trust anyone, creating a landscape of shared internal fear. This lack of trust prevented any organized empire collapse for a long time. What this quiet watch shows us is the long, slow build-up of a culture of fear. Unlike the quick, sharp plots of Rome, the Russian system was patient and enduring. The fear became a tradition, passed down from one Tsar to the next. The constant cold and the vast empty spaces mirrored the cold, empty feeling in the heart of the ruler. He was safe, but utterly alone. The great emperor was trapped by his own need to watch every corner. The shadow of suspicion was longer and darker in the north than anywhere else. The use of an all-encompassing secret police connects the Tsars directly to the great tyrants of the 20th century, most notably Stalin, who we will soon discuss. The idea of the silent watcher, the hidden force that is everywhere and nowhere, is the ultimate expression of political paranoia. The Russian fear of betrayal became the blueprint for the modern totalitarian state. The cold, snowy palace was the birthplace of a dark history that would reach its peak many years later. Close your eyes and see the snow falling silently outside the palace window, but listen to the quiet, constant sound of the hidden watchers inside. You are safe now, far away from the cold, constant fear of the Russian Tsar. Let the memory of his long, cold watch bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of paranoia is now ready to explode in the time of the great machine, the friend who sent others away. A strong leader saw enemies in every house, even his very own family. His quiet fear sent millions to the cold, dark north. We have come to the time of Joseph Stalin, the ultimate ruler of the Soviet Union. Stalin learned all the lessons of dark history too well. He was the greatest master of political paranoia. His rule was based on the absolute certainty that plots were everywhere, and that his own friends were the most likely source of betrayal. He took the old fear of the Tsars and made it into a giant, efficient machine. Stalin's fear of loyalty crime was total. He did not trust anyone who had a powerful idea, a good memory, or a strong personality. He believed that anyone who had known the original ideas of the revolution was a threat to his current power. His solution was simple and brutal. He eliminated them all. He started a time called the Great Purge, where millions of people were arrested, sent away, or killed. This act was not driven by anger, but by cold, quiet paranoia. He was simply removing all possible sources of future empire collapse. The meaning of the Great Purge is that paranoia does not need a reason. It only needs a system. Stalin made the system work automatically. He created quotas for arrests, forcing local officials to find enemies even if there were none. This forced everyone to participate in the general fear. The people who were arrested were forced to betray their own friends and family to save themselves. This made the fear spread like a fast, terrible fire, destroying the very fabric of human trust. The state of total suspicion became the normal way of life. What this dark moment shows us is the complete isolation of the tyrant. Stalin became the last man standing. He killed all the people who could have challenged him, but he also killed all the people who could have been his friend. He lived in a closed-off compound, constantly moving his security and watching old movies. His paranoia became his only companion. He was the ultimate emperor, but he was also the loneliest man in the world. This total isolation is the final price of absolute power based on fear. The cold efficiency of Stalin's purge connects to the worst moments of Roman dark history, but with one terrible difference: scale. The secret police of the Tsar and the mistrust law of Augustus was small in comparison to Stalin's machine. He took the old idea of the loyalty crime and industrialized it. This moment is the high point of political paranoia in our story. It shows the devastating power of one man's deep, quiet fear. Close your eyes and think of the dark, cold places where millions were sent by one man's great fear. You're safe now, far away from the system of suspicion. Let the memory of the immense cold land bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of paranoia is moving now to the man who ran very far away. The man who ran far away. The leader's greatest helper had to run across the whole world to hide. The fear of one man followed him like a long dark shadow. The man who ran was Leon Trotsky. He was once Stalin's equal, a brilliant leader of the revolution. He was a great speaker and thinker, a man who had helped create the very system Stalin now controlled. But Trotsky believed in a different kind of revolution, a more open and worldwide one. This difference in ideas was seen by Stalin as the most dangerous kind of betrayal. Trotsky was forced to leave Russia. He moved from country to country, always one step ahead of Stalin's reach. His whole life became a journey of exile, a constant fight against paranoia. He knew that Stalin's long arm could reach anywhere in the world. He kept writing and speaking, but he knew his words were a target. This quiet, constant chase across continents shows the relentless nature of the tyrant's fear. For Stalin, as long as Trotsky lived, the threat of empire collapse by true, pure communism was real. The meaning of Trotsky's long flight is that the exiled friend is often more dangerous than the open enemy. Trotsky represented a competing idea, a different future for the empire. He held the memory of the original revolution, a memory that Stalin wanted to erase completely. This made him a living problem, a walking piece of dark history that had to be eliminated. Stalin's paranoia was not satisfied with just winning, it needed to totally dominate the story. The ultimate loyalty crime was existing outside the dictator's control. What this long chase shows us is the extreme length a totalitarian emperor will go to settle his deepest fears. Stalin sent an agent with a frozen ice pick to kill Trotsky in Mexico, thousands of miles away from Russia. The long shadow finally caught the man. This final, sharp act showed the world that there was no safe place from Stalin's paranoia. It was a message to all who thought they could defy him from a distance. The total control over the narrative of the revolution was more important than anything else. The murder of Trotsky connects back to the Roman times of prescription, where a ruler would mark a man for death and send agents to hunt him down. The principle is ancient, but the execution was modern and global. The fear of the man who ran away is the same fear Napoleon had of the future, a fear of an idea taking root outside the system. The quiet, constant hunt is a powerful motif in the dark history of betrayal. Close your eyes and see the man running forever across the great world, always looking over his shoulder. The long dark shadow of one man's fear finally caught him. You're safe now, far away from the constant chase and the cold, sharp end. Let the memory of the lonely traveller bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of paranoia is moving now to the silent moment of the world's breath. Two leaders who could not trust. 2. Great countries held the whole world's breath for a few days. The total lack of trust meant the end was very, very near. Now we come to the Cold War, a time of two great powers, the United States and the Soviet Union. The whole world was split into two sides. The fear between the leaders of these two sides was not personal, but systemic. It was a national paranoia, a fear that the other side was constantly plotting the ultimate betrayal, nuclear war. The Cuban Missile Crisis was the high point of this national fear. The Soviet Union secretly placed powerful, dangerous weapons on the island of Cuba, very close to America. The leaders of America saw this as a shocking direct threat, a major loyalty crime against world peace. The leaders of the Soviet Union believed they were just defending themselves from a plotting enemy. Both sides were acting from a place of deep, cold suspicion. The fear was so big that the world came closer to empire collapse than ever before. The meaning of the Cuban Missile Crisis is that paranoia on a global scale is the most dangerous kind of fear. It moves away from personal emotion and becomes pure, cold logic. Each side made plans based on the worst possible intention of the other side. This logic of mutual suspicion forced both leaders to the brink of disaster. They could not communicate honestly because they could not trust the other's words. The whole world was held hostage by the deep, quiet lack of loyalty between the two great empires. What this short, terrifying moment shows us is the danger of letting paranoia control the decision-making. The two leaders, Kennedy and Khrushchev, were forced to face the reality that their mutual fear could destroy all life on Earth. They realized that total suspicion was not a safe strategy. It was an active danger. The only way to step back was to find a tiny, small space for simple human trust. This moment of shared ultimate risk was the only thing that forced them to communicate honestly. The global tension of this time connects to the ancient problem of the Roman Tetrarchy, where 4 rulers could not trust each other. In the Cold War, 2 rulers could not trust each other, and the stakes were infinitely higher. The problem is the same: absolute power with an absolute lack of faith in the partner. This dark history moment teaches us the clearest lesson. Paranoia leads to destruction, regardless of the size of the danger. Close your eyes and feel the long, quiet breath the world held during those few days. The air was cold and heavy with national fear. You're safe now, far away from the plots and the big, dangerous weapons. Let the memory of the world's closest call bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of paranoia is moving now to the man who changes all faces. The leader who changes all faces. A strong man kept changing all his closest helpers, over and over again. He feared that a long stay meant a sudden, sharp plot. Now we turn to the vast, closed country of China and its powerful leader Mao Zedong. Mao ruled with absolute authority, but he too was consumed by deep paranoia. His fear was that the people around him would become too comfortable, too powerful, and too independent. He believed that even short-term loyalty was a setup for a long-term betrayal. Mao's solution to this fear was the constant revolution of the court. He would promote a friend, give him great power, and then suddenly, sharply cast him down. He changed his closest helpers, his generals and his ministers constantly. This was his way of preventing the growth of a strong fixed rival. No one could build a loyal base because they knew their time in power was short and uncertain. This system of constant rotation was the ultimate expression of planned paranoia. The meaning of this constant change is that the true tyrant cannot stand stability. Stability means that things are predictable, and predictability is the enemy of absolute fear. Mao used chaos and sudden change to keep everyone off balance. When no one is certain of their position, everyone is too busy watching their back to plot against the emperor. This manufactured chaos was a devastating form of control, preventing any possibility of empire collapse from within the leadership. What this quiet, sharp method shows us is the evolution of paranoia into a political tool. Mao was not just reacting to threats, he was creating them. He made the suspicion a feature of the system. This method made it impossible to know who was truly in favour, leading everyone to act with extreme caution and total loyalty to the man at the top. The entire political landscape was a reflection of Mao's own internal deep fear. This dark history lesson is about the weaponization of uncertainty. Mao's pattern of constantly changing faces connects directly to the Roman emperors who rotated their guards and advisors out of fear. The principle is the same: break the chain of familiarity before it becomes a chain of shared conspiracy. But Mao's execution was broader, affecting the entire political structure. He created a lasting culture of internal suspicion that continues to haunt the country long after he is gone. The loyalty crime was not just an act, it was the potential of a fixed relationship. Close your eyes and see the endless moving stream of faces around the great leader, each one appearing only to vanish quickly. You're safe now, far away from the system of constant change and the paranoia of the court. Let the memory of the moving faces bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of betrayal is moving now to a land that stays very still. The power that stays so very still. A small country is ruled by a deep, unchanging family fear that never moves. The smallest new thought is seen as the greatest danger. Our last great example of institutionalized paranoia is the ongoing dynasty of North Korea. This power is the ultimate expression of the fear of betrayal. The rule is passed from father to son, and the whole system is built around protecting the family from any internal or external threat. The paranoia here is total and inherited. In North Korea, the loyalty crime is the core of all law. Any deviation from the leader's words is seen as a direct attack on the entire nation. The fear is kept alive and constant through a complete blockade of outside ideas and information. The people are only allowed to hear one story, the story of their great benevolent leader. This is the only way to maintain absolute control and prevent any seeds of betrayal from growing. The total control over information is the ultimate defense against the thought of empire collapse. The meaning of this static, quiet power is that total paranoia creates a total stillness. Nothing is allowed to change because change brings uncertainty, and uncertainty brings fear. The leaders constantly eliminate any family member, general, or minister who shows even a hint of independent thought. They are sent away, or they vanish quietly. This is not about winning an election. It is about maintaining a perfect, cold silence around the emperor. This dark history is still being written in a way that is chillingly familiar to the old Roman fears. What this quiet stillness shows us is the longevity of a system built on pure paranoia. The dynasty has lasted for decades by making the consequences of betrayal too terrible to contemplate. The fear is not just for the individual, it is for the whole family, across 3 generations. This system is the most complete answer to Machiavelli's problem. It proves that a total, constant fear, sustained by total control of information, can create a long-lasting, though fragile empire. The quiet, sharp purges in North Korea connect back to the young, wild paranoia of Caligula, but with the cold, scientific execution of Stalin. The fear is personalized, protecting the family line, but the methods are systemic. This final example brings our story to the present day, showing us that the core fear of the ruler is eternal. The man closest to you is the one who holds the sharpest danger. This is the last and most complete expression of the loyalty crime that has defined dark history. Close your eyes and see the small, quiet country, held completely still by one great unchanging fear. You're safe now, far away from the rigid silence and the deep, cold watch. Let the memory of the ultimate stillness bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of paranoia is now moving to the quiet reflection. Breathe deep and let your thoughts slow down now. Your mind is safe, far away from the plots of kings and emperors. The stories of great empires and great paranoia are just sounds now, fading in the darkness. You have listened to the long, heavy cost of power, and you have learned the simple truth of betrayal. Remember this lesson of quiet vigilance. Do not let the fears of the past trouble your rest tonight. If this gentle story brought you peace, share it with a close friend who also needs rest. Close your eyes and let the final moments of dark history bring you sweet, soft answers, the old fear that never left. We look back at the Romans and the first sharp betrayal long ago. It was a simple seed that grew into a dark, tall tree. Now that our long journey is nearly over, we look back to the start. The quiet, sharp moment when Caesar saw the knife in Brutus's hand was the moment our story truly began. It was not just a king falling. It was the first clear sign that absolute power always creates its own deep, quiet fear. This fear of loyalty crime is the seed. It is the beginning of all the paranoia we have seen. The simple fear of a friend's betrayal is the one thing that connects every single ruler in our story. From Caesar to Stalin, the problem was the same. The closer a person is, the more damage they can do. The one you trust with your life is the only one who can truly take it. This simple fact is the unchanging core of dark history. The technology changed, the clothes changed, and the names changed, but the deep, quiet fear in the heart of the emperor remained exactly the same. The meaning of this great recurring fear is that power itself is a lonely thing. It separates the ruler from the rest of humanity. Once you are elevated, you can never look down and trust a person in the same way again. The throne is a tall, cold tower that keeps out all true friendship. The fear of empire collapse is really the fear of falling from a very great height, and the only people close enough to push you are the people you brought up the tower with you. What this quiet return to the start shows us is the deep, sad simplicity of the whole thing. The Great Purge of Stalin was just a massive modern version of Domitian's fear of the shiny floor. Both were trying to find the one hidden enemy who stood too close. Both were trying to manage the threat of the ultimate loyalty crime. The quiet fear never left the palaces. It just found new ways to express itself across time and space. The thread of the sharp knife connects all the thousands of years of our story. It is a powerful, simple reminder that the most sophisticated political systems are still run by simple, human emotions. Paranoia is the dark, silent partner of every great ruler. It is the cost they must pay for the crown, and it is the single greatest reason for empire collapse. Close your eyes and see the small, simple seed of fear that was planted long ago in Rome. It grew into a very dark tree, but the seed itself was small and quiet. You're safe now, far away from the dangers of the great tree. Let the memory of the simple start bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of paranoia is moving now to the image of the broken circle, the circle of trust that breaks. When great trust is lost, a strong circle turns into sharp lines. We see this lonely pattern repeat in every time and place. Trust is like a perfect circle. It means that everyone is connected and everyone is equal under the protection of the whole group. For a great emperor, the inner circle of trust is the strongest part of the empire. It is the place where the ruler should feel safest. But the moment paranoia enters, the circle breaks. The broken circle turns into sharp lines. These lines point outwards, away from the ruler. The ruler sees every person as a point of danger, not a part of a safe whole. This is the simple, visual pattern of betrayal we have observed. Caesar's close friends became a group of outward-pointing knives. Stalin's inner circle became lines of fear, each helper watching the other, all pointing their suspicion toward the center. This geometry of dark history is always the same. The meaning of the broken circle is the death of shared purpose. When the ruler no longer believes in the loyalty of the group can no longer function. They stop working for the good of the whole and start working only for their own survival. This is the internal corrosion that leads to empire collapse. The great, strong structure of the nation is eaten away from the inside by this simple loss of faith. What this quiet pattern shows us is the fragility of power. A strong army can be stopped by an even stronger army. But the internal weakness of paranoia can only be cured by internal trust, a medicine that no tyrant can take. The rulers who lasted the longest, like Elizabeth, were the ones who managed the shape of the circle, making the threat external instead of internal. But even she was constantly managing the fear of the broken line. The image of the broken circle connects to the failure of all grand political experiments built on a false sense of loyalty. The terror in France was a circle of pure idea that broke sharply. The Cold War was two broken circles standing opposed, each one ready to break the world. The lesson is simple. You can try to rule with fear, but the geometry of power will always demand trust to survive. Close your eyes and see a simple, quiet circle breaking apart slowly, making sharp, tiny sounds in the dark. You're safe now, far away from the tension of the sharp lines. Let the memory of the geometric patterns bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of paranoia is moving now to the great personal cost. What the leaders lost inside. The greatest rulers paid a high price for their great quiet fear. They lost their peaceful sleep and their true, close friends. We must now talk about the quiet internal cost of paranoia. The emperors gained the whole world, but they lost the peace inside their own minds. They lived in luxury, but they were prisoners of their own suspicion. This internal loss is the real tragedy of dark history. The first thing they lost was sleep. Sleep requires trust. You must trust that the world will be there when you wake up, and that no one will hurt you while you are defenseless. The tyrant cannot have this simple trust. They must keep a small part of their mind awake, constantly listening for the quiet approach of betrayal. This constant vigilance is exhausting. The lack of true rest is the heavy, invisible burden of the crown. It is the payment for the loyalty crime. The second thing they lost was their friends. Every strong ruler, even Stalin, started with true friends, comrades who believed in the same idea. But the paranoia of power forces the ruler to see all those friends as future rivals. The ruler must choose between the feeling of safety and the feeling of love. They always choose safety, and in doing so they become utterly alone. The empty space around the throne is the space where all the true lost friends used to stand. The meaning of this great quiet loss is that power is not truly gained. It is borrowed at the cost of the soul. The rulers who lasted the longest were the ones who perfected the art of making their paranoia a system, but even they could not escape the personal cost. They lived lives of constant calculation, never knowing a moment of simple, genuine human connection. The fear of empire collapse starts as a political problem, but ends as a deep personal sorrow. What this sad reflection shows us is the true, quiet lesson of our long story. The man who rules an empire is often the most broken man in the entire empire. He is rich and powerful, but he is poor in the one thing that truly matters: the simple ability to rest and to trust. This vulnerability is the final sad truth about absolute power. Close your eyes and think of the lonely man in the vast dark palace. Unable to close his eyes because of the constant whisper of danger. You are safe now, in your own quiet dark, far away from the loss of the emperor. Let the memory of his sleepless night bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of paranoia is moving now to the soft, final lesson. What history gently teaches us, the long quiet past softly shows us the danger of too much fear. It is a soft lesson whispered in the dark corners of power. The story of paranoia and betrayal is not just a story of dead emperors and fallen empires. It is a quiet lesson for us all. We too feel the fear of being betrayed, the worry that a friend will turn, or that a quiet promise will be broken. This human feeling is normal and natural. But the great lesson of dark history is the danger of letting that small natural fear grow too big. The moment the fear becomes a system, a way of life, it destroys everything good. The rulers of the past let their paranoia become their most trusted advisor. They listened to the fear more than they listened to their friends, their family, or their own good sense. This choice to listen to fear is what led to the empire collapse over and over again. The meaning of this gentle lesson is the power of quiet kindness. The opposite of paranoia is not bravery. It is simple trust. Trust is a risk, a choice to be vulnerable, a choice to believe in the goodness of another person. The rulers who failed were the ones who were too afraid to take this risk. They chose the false safety of suspicion over the true strength of loyalty. Their choice led them to lonely, sad ends. What history gently shows us is that the greatest act of power is the choice to be human. To be human means to accept the possibility of betrayal. You cannot eliminate the risk, but you can choose not to be ruled by it. The men who tried to eliminate the risk ended up destroying their own lives and the lives of millions. The quiet truth is that the external dangers are never as great as the internal one. The final piece of dark history connects to the present moment. We are safe now, listening to this soft, simple story. We have seen the whole long journey of the loyalty crime and its heavy cost. We can now choose to leave the fear behind. We can leave the cold calculations of the emperors in the past where they belong. The time for listening to the dark history is over. The time for rest is now beginning. Close your eyes and see the long road we have travelled, covered in a soft, thick layer of protective mist. The memory of the danger is fading now. You're safe now, far away from the plots and the constant fear. Let the gentle lesson of history bring you deep, easy sleep. The shadow of paranoia is moving now to the final, quiet idea. The hidden power of trust. The long story ends with one soft, simple, quiet idea. Only in quiet trust can the long shadows finally go to sleep. We have seen the immense power of paranoia to tear down the greatest empires. We have seen the relentless dark shadow of betrayal follow every single leader through dark history. But now, at the very end of our journey, we must talk about the hidden, soft power of trust. This quiet force is the only true answer to all the fear. Trust is the single human quality that all the powerful men in our story either lost or were too afraid to embrace. It is the ability to close your eyes, both literally and figuratively, and believe that the world, for a moment, is safe. This simple act of loyalty to hope is the greatest strength of all. It is the quiet power that stops the cycle of paranoia from repeating itself endlessly. The meaning of this hidden power is that peace is not found by watching every enemy, but by resting with every friend. The tyrants who fell lived their entire lives watching for the loyalty crime. They tried to control all the plots, but in the end they were controlled by their own fear of the plots. Trust is the final freedom. It is the ability to say, I accept the risk of betrayal, but I choose to believe in kindness instead. What this final, soft reflection shows us is that the empire collapse of the greatest powers was not a matter of weapons or economics. It was a failure of the heart. The internal destruction caused by deep, quiet paranoia was more effective than any outside enemy could ever be. The final lesson is a comforting one. The greatest strength you can possess is not power, but the simple, quiet ability to trust the world around you. The long, winding path of dark history has brought us here, to this moment of simple, quiet peace. We have learned the cost of fear. We have closed the book on the great emperors and their worries. Now it is time to let the quiet rhythm of the story take over completely. You are safe. You are at rest. The fears of the past are far away. Close your eyes and see the vast dark sky, but focus only on the smallest, softest light. This light is the light of trust, the light that guides you to rest. The long story is now complete. Paranoia has gone to sleep. The fear of betrayal is a heavy crown, a burden that even the strongest empires could not bear. From the moment the first dagger was hidden beneath a friend's cloak, the course of power was set toward lonely destruction. Every story of paranoia ends in loss, but we have found the quiet lesson in the dark. Only in soft, simple trust can the long shadows finally go to sleep. You have travelled through the deep, dark history of man's deepest fear, and now you are home. Let the voices of the emperors and the plots of the ancients become like the faraway sound of the ocean. They are no longer a threat to your peace. We have closed the book on the old worries and the final loyalty crimes. What will we find in the light of the soft morning? Sweet dreams,